I just watched Stranger Things season 4, and pretty much as every other season goes, it was really, really good. It was definitely different from the first seasons, or first 3 seasons. Um, I did have a theory though. Spoilers ahead, though. Just a heads up. I had a theory that the Victor Creel, that he was actually a Russian immigrant, and the whole reason why they moved in were the fact that they were Russian spies, and that his son Henry was actually part of the Russian experiments. The Russians were the ones that did the experiments originally, and Dr. Brenner, he just found him and heard about this and wanted to use him against the Soviets because they suspected them of experiments while the U.S. was also doing experiments. So that's one of my theories. I'm still curious to know about the origin of the Upside Down, and I'm curious if the Mind Flare and the Shadow are the same thing. Most likely they probably are, but part of me wants to say they are different. But I was kind of disappointed when they introduced Eddie Munson to the season, and immediately he was killed off in the end when he was just introduced, after just being introduced, but it was pretty good. I'm still curious to know on how Henry fully transformed after meeting the Shadow. Like, what happened to him? Like, did the Shadow become him and he become the Shadow? Or something else? But, yeah. I'd still like to know the origin of the Upside Down. But the one thing that I find interesting is that the creatures look quite similar design to the creatures of the Quiet Place. Now, I don't think they're connected, but yeah, thought that was pretty interesting. Forgot the guy's name, but I was very intrigued to find that the actor that played Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street was in this show and played a big role in this series. Was very interesting. So I still am wondering how come the Upside Down is only when it was released in the end is how come it only affects Hawkins if it's not a worldwide thing going on. So if Hawkins is the one being affected, although it may because his power can do so much that it has to spread the Upside Down when he enters the Earth. But makes me curious that with Vecna, aka Henry, aka One, burned to death, I wonder, my theory is that he might be the Mind Flare, so he basically evaporated into a bit of smoke and just flew away to wherever. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Although there's one theory that I feel would be very cool as it would be, but at the same time I think it's a bit way too over the top. The fact that Billy's Vecna, the whole point of Billy being the only character or being the only one to see themselves in the Upside Down, making people think that there's an alternate version of him, the good side and bad side of him, meaning that Billy's the good side or something. I can't remember. The theory seemed way too over the top, so I didn't agree with that theory, but I really liked the Vecna design. It was definitely a callback to a sort of bit of Hellraiser as far as like the torturing and a kind of an inner being from another dimension who serves a higher power, which I'm assuming he is serving the Mind Flayer. Now, the interesting thing is that Vecna in Dungeons and Dragons is a reference to the Vecna. Basically, it's a evil turned, or a wizard turned evil. Excuse me. I thought that was interesting because of the telekinesis thing, about his powers. But I'm curious to know where his origin of his powers were. The only other question I had that had me curious was what they were building in Russia. Whether it was if it had to do with the Upside Down, or was it just part of Siberia, just something they were doing like as a transportation. But it looked like they were making railroad tracks, and I was curious to know what it was for, where it led to. So I'm still, that's the one big role, and it's confusing to me. And my also other curiosity is how Henry, if Henry got his powers, and Eleven has the same exact powers as him, but according to the show, they do mention that they got their powers from experiments. But Henry had his powers before Dr. Brenner began this experiment, so how did he manage to get all the other kids to get the same powers, while Henry was there with powers still? Which makes me think that Henry was also experimented on, but he was experimented on by the Russians, which is I thought was a good theory. I have a theory that maybe, quite possibly, that so since Will has the ability to basically sense the Mind Flayer or anything big in the Upside Down that's coming near, just looks at feels at his neck, almost a ting, kind of like a spider sense, I guess. Makes me wonder that if Eleven's powers and the Upside Down are connected, like, did she get her powers, or not her, but originally Henry, did Henry get his powers from the Upside Down? And I'd like to see more species of different creatures in the Stranger Things lore, or not lore, but the show itself, and how it evolves. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad it's ending with a final season, basically season 5, which I'm going to assume is going to be released in 2023. But there's no big confirmation of an exact date or exact year release. So, but most likely it's 2023, because originally it was set for 2021, I believe. Before the COVID pandemic hit, it changed all the schedules and messed up everything, which, of course, everyone can agree on was sucky, but it'll be nice with the new season coming out sooner, most likely sooner than later. But I really liked it. I'd say I can't give it out of 10, because that's too much of a small of a scale for me to rate a film or a show sometimes. So I'd say I give it an 85, maybe a 90. It kind of differs per season, but yeah. The one thing I do like the most was season 1, or the thing I liked about it the most versus all the other seasons, is not knowing anything about the show whatsoever other than what the plot tells you. and just introducing the characters and the mystery. It's almost like it's kind of like they throw these random things at you, and you're very confused, not knowing, whoa, how is this connected? Like, if you look back at it, and I think more shows and films should be made like this, like Spielberg style movies, like In the Mouth of Madness, although that's a bit more surreal. But I guess X-Files would be the best example, and Twilight Zone and Outer Limits are three great shows like that. Shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, just the thought that imagining a girl with telepathic powers and then suddenly it's just a monster that's kidnapping people and taking them to another dimension, like, makes you think, wait, someone's superpowers, and then there's a monster that almost looks like if an ugly flower, I guess I could say, an ugly turd flower. In fact, I've been writing my own stories. In fact, I thought of an idea where I got a little inspiration from House of a Thousand Corpses, which is highly recommended horror film from Rob Zombie. Probably, of course, it's an overrated opinion, but it is one of his best movies. Although, if you do want a new movie that's highly underrated and it's horror, is In the Mouths of Madness and The Void. Those are very good horror films. And Get Out, if you look, because those first two I mentioned are much more on the cosmic horror side, but if you want something more unique, and it's in a sense but still original, Get Out. I haven't seen Us, but I know most of what's going on from YouTube videos. So those are definitely some horror flicks I'd recommend. Because lately I don't like... The problem with horror films lately is there's a lot of ones about, oh no, there's a haunted game, or haunted house. I mean, if you do a haunted house, that's fine. You gotta do it originality, like, not some moving books or stuff. Maybe like, let's see, like, maybe statues with glowing eyes coming to life would be a good example. But... Or let's say the house was actually part of a nuclear testing site, one of those, and it turns out the hauntings are all science fiction, sort of like caused by paranormal ghosts of the deceased from the nuclear attacks. Kind of give it a weird, I don't know, something unique. But, or what's another one, like Getting Lost in the Woods, oh no, don't pick up this stranger, or there's this crazy guy who we thought was not crazy. He's going to kill us, blah, blah, blah. That's where Stranger Things goes at. I feel like it's kind of like bringing back that style, that aesthetic of horror. But I feel like what we call horror now is more just gore, and it's stupid. I mean, you can have gore, but like, not an excessive amount. Like, for example, Saw movies. I think you can be mad at me all you want, but I think they're trash. The Hellraiser, however, aside from the goriness, has an original story and a very interesting world-building stories. Although it's from a Clive Barker book, which is, versus the movie, from what I've heard, it's more into the weirdness in the books, versus the movie is, of course, because it's a popular thing even today, and I think it's a stupid thing, is gore movies. Unless you're talking about like The Thing, which was a gory but towards alien creatures. That was cool. That was an really good original idea. But other than that, I think the show went well. I think it did really well. But thanks for watching, and hope to see you again.